Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for a special screening of It Doesn't Matter, a powerful short film written by Zack Browne, designed by Alfonso Ruiz, and edited by SCA Alumnus Carlos Crooks. The filmmakers and I had been coordinating this screening throughout the summer in support of racial justice in America. And because this is America, it now comes right on the heels of yet further police brutality against Black men and women, following the near-fatal shooting of Jacob Blake by Kenosha police officer Rustin Shesky in Wisconsin on Sunday, August 23rd. So please, I hope that this film will speak to you and that you'll stick around for a conversation with the filmmakers, Zack Browne, Alfonso Ruiz, and Carlos Crooks. We'll discuss making the film with SCA alumnus Derek Garlington. And I just wanted to turn it over to them if they wanted to say a couple words of introduction. Do you guys want to say anything or just let the film run on its own?
It's up to Derek, whatever Derek wants to do for us.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we let the film roll so people can kind of get their take on the film, and then we can start a discussion on it.
Because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter who I am, where I'm from, what I do, or what I've done.
It doesn't matter how I was raised.
What I wear, who I'm with, who looks up to me.
It doesn't matter if I'm successful.
If I have dreams.
What my plans are.
Where I'm going.
It doesn't matter who I know, what I have,
what I'm thinking, or where I go.
It doesn't matter how good of a person I am or try to be.
As a Black person in America, I'm just one false accusation.
One wrong place, wrong time.
One cop or Karen having a bad day away from being abused,
locked up,
or murdered.
That's my everyday reality. That's a paranoia I fear I may never shake.
That's why.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for creating and sharing that film with us today. It's pretty heavy on my heart. I do a lot of these panels and usually I'm very kind of smiley and upbeat, but at this time it's a little hard to be that way given just the current state of things. And I first want to just comment on, again, thank you for sharing this film and how powerful it is. And given that we're at a kind of time where this film is constantly timely, considering what's happened with Jacob Blake in Wisconsin recently in the last few days, and with the NBA kind of taking a stance as well. And I just want to know, how are you all feeling in this moment in terms of creating a piece like this and it continuing to just be so relevant given almost every other day a new case is happening that brings this stuff to light? You know, whoever wants to go first can kind of chime in on that.
I can chime in. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many things I've shared since releasing this film that further prove the point that it doesn't matter. You know, it's crazy, it's sad, it's terrifying that like things that happened to Jacob, you know, they're still happening and they're getting worse. Like, I mean, I can't imagine if one of those kids got hit in the shooting. Like, it's insane, and it's unfair. And honestly, like, I don't know how to feel because I'm worried, but I'm also numb and not surprised because, you know, it just keeps happening. it just keeps proving that it truly doesn't matter, what you do, who you are, where you're from. Like, we're all a target. So yeah, it's a strange day, and just happening to have this screening today and the day that sports are kind of shutting down and things are kind of bubbling up. It's just, it's crazy.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say on that point?
Yeah, I mean, Zach really encapsulates how I feel as well. I mean, for me, it's traumatic. We just went through this, and now we're going through it again. And for me, it just like further proves that racism is deep within the bedrock and foundation of America. And I wanted to borrow some words from a great book, Between the World and Me. And really, the author says that, Americans believe in the reality of race as an unequivocal feature of the natural world. Racism, the need to ascribe physical features to a segment of people to humiliate, reduce, and tear down, inevitably creates an inalterable condition. And in this way, racism is then rendered innocent and a part of the natural order of things. And to me, this is where this entitlement comes from, the police officers that commit these crimes. And it's detestable, it's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate. So it's hard to accept right now.
And it just keeps getting worse, which is the scariest part. Like, who knows how bad it's going to get, or if it'll ever get better.
Definitely. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to ask off of that, how did you all three come together to make this project in general? Because it seems, it's a very powerful short film that seems like in quick time. So I was just wondering, how did this project come to light?
So we all work together in an advertising agency. And so when I decided to turn my poem that I wrote into a film, I definitely wanted to work with some talented people that I trusted, and people of color who would kind of understand the power behind the words and be able to bring it to life even more so than I could by myself.
Yeah, Zach, we're actually in a meeting for work stuff, and you kind of drift a little bit, and I was scrolling through Instagram, and Zach had written this poem on his stories, and he can tell you a little bit more about how he did that. But I just remember that kind of arresting moment, oh my God, this is, I think what was really powerful about his words is we're in advertising, and it's a majority white industry. People of color are few and far in between, and then less even Black people. And it really kind of shut down the agency for a day, or our workplace for a day. And I didn't want to kind of impose on Zach, but I kind of replied to his stories, and he came back to me like, hey, let's do the movie, or let's make it into video. And I'm like, hey, I was actually going to tell you this because more people need to feel like what I felt reading your poem. And the more people that reached out to Zach, the more it became clear, this has to become something. So he kind of took the reins and took it from there.
And with this film, I felt like you guys used three elements that were very powerful. Of course, the text of the poem. I was hoping maybe you could speak a little bit more to what that poem means to you. The voices were very powerful, of course, and I'd love to know more about where those voices were sourced, how you guys came along that. And then the images were so powerful, especially how visceral and quick they moved through. And I imagine there was a deep pool of photos to pull from. So on that aspect, I also want to know, what was it like to go through all those photos and kind of decide which ones to use, and just kind of, I know when you're going through images, especially when it's documentary, it can feel a little bit surreal because fiction, you're taking nonfiction and putting it into a story, and sometimes it's just a bit surreal to be like, oh wait, no, these images are real. This isn't something that, we created for a film. So to summarize, I wanted to know, a bit more about the text and the narrative and the text, where those voices were sourced and what it was like to edit all of this together.
Cool. I mean, I could speak to the words and let Carlos speak to the images. He's the master of creating that beautiful montage at the end. So, I mean, like most films, this one started with the words, obviously. And however, when I wrote the poem, I had no intention of turning it into a film. You know, I just had to get it out. Like, unfortunately, I came to the realization that it doesn't matter a long time ago, back when I was in college and undergrad, when I was a victim of police brutality. And, you know, despite being a good kid, that made me realize that it really doesn't matter how good you try to be. Like, we're all a target because of the color of our skin. And then when I wrote it, it was the same day that we were finding out more about the injustice around the George Floyd murder. And I was just like, I was heated, and I just started writing. I was in a meeting and I just couldn't focus on it. I just started writing. And then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna post this and, you know, let the world or let my followers know how I feel. And then once I posted, I got a lot of good feedback. It was resonating with a lot of people, especially white people who had no idea, like, the daily paranoia and fear that we go through. And knowing that I'm not, you know, I'm not a thug, I'm not a criminal, like I'm a quote unquote good guy, and knowing that and seeing how hard it is to you know, just be me and live, you know, day to day. As far as the voices, we thought it'd be more powerful, instead of just coming from one voice, to make it come from a variety of voices from across the country. So I hit up most of my Black friends from, you know, New York, back in New York, California, Kansas City, Maine, Detroit, you know, everybody who I thought would, you know, add to the piece and also had the same feelings as me. And they were, you know, more than happy to contribute and help bring this thing to life.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to bring Fonz into this real quick because everything started from the boards that he and Zach put together. So I don't know, Fonz, if you wanted to speak to that before I get to the whole editing process, because really that was like the skeleton of what I worked on.
Yeah. It was really important from the very beginning that Zach kind of told me, like, hey, I need you to design this for me. And it was very important to make it all about the words and not take away from that. And we tried a few different things, and we said, oh, we have to make this stand out because, you know, a lot of people do the type on black. But after doing an exploration it was very clear that was the most bare bones ways of doing it was the most effective. For a reason, we see that a lot because it was the way to strip down everything but the words. And when Zach reached out to all of his friends that did the voices, we were kind of like, don't read it out loud until you do the recording, because we wanted to get that raw emotion that, you know, comes through. Like the first time you read those words, it's really visceral, and we wanted to capture that, and we didn't want it to be overacted. We didn't want to add like any like anything that felt too directed, anything that felt like too overindulgent, like we were trying to capture more emotion than it was, because it's already there. So I kind of did the boards, and we found these photos from a photographer that was in the Minneapolis protests. His name's Isaiah Rustad. Correct me if I said that wrong. But we found him on Instagram, and he was taking the photos, and he was kind of gracious enough he kind of put a link out there online for high-res photos of all of his images that he was taking. So we reached out to him, and we kind of shared it, and he was all for us kind of using them and, you know, for good and to spread the word. So, you know, Carlos kind of took it and put his editorial spin on it, and, you know, passing it on to you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. You know, Derek, for me, it was first with the music. So it was really came down to creating a piece that felt authentic to Zack's piece, because he had such powerful words. Fonz brought such a powerful design and aesthetic to it that I didn't want the music to overpower the message. So I really just wanted it to be a set piece. So in essence, I looked at it from a standpoint of how do I utilize music and sound effects in such a way to narratively push this message forward and encapsulate the emotions that would come from that, from the audience, and guide it in such a way that made the best use of it, because music essentially tells people how to feel. So once I kind of found that, which was a mixture of genres, it was classical music as well as science fiction, sci-fi, and horror. And taking the stems from all those different pieces, I felt that it would be best to use it in that way to really give it a sense of the horror that us as Black Americans feel day to day, and how hard it is to really walk in this life in America, and to kind of evoke that through like the horror music and sound effects. And then with that, the classical music to give it a tone of sincerity, which is why you hear the piano in the beginning, and piano typically does not really obstruct. It kind of just is a set piece. It's kind of like something there to kind of just guide your emotions, to make you happy, sad, or cry. And so that's how I kind of thought about it from the beginning and made it into the piece with the music and sound effects. And then this is going to the flashing of the images. I always go back to what my professor, Drew Casper, said to me, or to the whole class, of how he thinks about narrative. So it's always like a roller coaster. So it's always about adding tension in the beginning, you know, as you're climbing up that roller coaster, the buildup and the encapsulation of that tension. And then you're going down for the fun, and you like release it as much as you can. And then it's like this wash and repeat cycle. And so that was kind of like my guiding, kind of like my navigation, my map to how to work with this, because it's so simple. It's such a simple, in essence, it's simple in terms of what's there. But it's actually very much complex, what we're trying to do, Zack, Fonz, and myself, and make it in the most dramatic way possible and have people feel how we're feeling. When it comes down to the flashing of the images, that's when I had to figure out how was I going to evoke this massive scale of emotion with the images that Fonz found from the Instagram photographer. And what I found is that I couldn't, because I did a bunch of tests, I couldn't flicker through them and add a visual effects shake to it through After Effects, because that's tricking the audience, and it was false, and it was not sincere, and you could immediately tell. And I didn't feel any sense of sincerity. I didn't feel any trauma from what I was seeing. And so after trying shakes, things being thrown at you on screen, adding motion blur, after I found out all that stuff didn't work, I said I have to strip it all back down, kind of like the way Fonz did with his type, and essentially use sound effects. And that's where I used fire, random stuff to really add that ending note with all that emotion. So to guide you through that is essentially, first you have this flicker of sound effects with like a paper, or sorry, it's a plastic glove sound effect, which is where you get that clicking sound. And as that steadily speeds up frame by frame, or every couple of frames, I then have this velocity that kind of goes like a couple of levels. So there's like a first level, a second level, and a third. And at each segment of points of levels of velocity, I essentially added more sound effects. And to instigate the highest or fastest speed of flickering, I essentially added this burst of flames, which is a picture that you can see of the flames of the rioting. And then I had to add emphasis to two of the frames I felt were most important to Zack's words, which were Justice for George Floyd and I Can't Breathe. And in order to do that, I realized, and I'm almost done here, at a certain point, your brain at that point can't register what's going on through the flickering of the images. It's too fast. It's going by frame. So what I had to do is, through multiple tests, is I found out that your brain does and can recognize what's happening if you vary the frames by adding one. So let's say if you have a frame of I can't breathe, and then another frame of a girl with a big mask on, which you do see, or I'm sorry, it was a top. And then you go back to I can't breathe. That slight variation allows you to register what's happening. And then what I did is I just varied a frame off of the sound of the glove sound effect to add a bunch of emphasis there. And then I released it and let it all trail off, which is when you hear all the sound effects cut off, and just added like a reverb. And then you hear Zach's voice. Doesn't matter, I think he said. I forget. But that's how I did it.
I love that process because editing, it really brings it all together. And the flicker effect I found is very effective. So I felt the emotions you guys conveyed with the film definitely came through, and letting it just breathe at the end after all that chaos is kind of the feeling of this moment. Sometimes is you get all that built up, you get all that anger, and then as you mentioned at the end, sometimes you just feel kind of numb because it's just so much to go through over and over. And with that kind of feeling, my next question was, many creators and filmmakers, especially Black ones right now, feel pretty crippled by the continuing like assault and denial of justice within the community. And I wanted to know, have you all been able to create outside the realm of filmmaking? It sounds like you guys do actually keep pretty busy, so you guys have had to keep working. And how do you kind of remain focused on your projects or work through those projects while dealing with this kind of flood of news coming in on the daily basis? How do you guys kind of keep your creative flow going? And kind of maybe some guidance for some students or people listening in who are maybe having some trouble finding that energy or focus to keep on striving.
Just very quickly, I'm sorry guys to interrupt. Because we do have a bunch of new people who joined probably after we screen the film, I want to screen it again at some point during the conversation. So just let me know whenever you're ready and I'll cue it up.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Maybe you guys answer this question, then we could probably have like a couple more questions. So you guys, after this question, we could screen it one more time, and then I'll finish up the next question.
Okay, sounds good. To answer this, I mean, it's definitely not easy. Like it's tough. While I was doing this, I was also doing other assignments for work at the same time, and like you got to move quickly. And when you're creating something like this, to like stay in the moment and stay when things are hot and people are paying attention. So it was a lot of long days balancing between multiple assignments. But you know, the passion and then the will to get it through makes you kind of gets you just doing it without really thinking. And I don't know, I mean, this helped me realize like my best way to contribute to the cause is through creativity. You know, that's what I know. That's what I do. And, you know, donating to the cause is great as well, but it wasn't enough for me. Like I always felt like I could do more. And once I started working on projects like this and kind of inject like the movement into other projects that I was doing for work, it helped me like understand like this is my role in this movement. And as creators, like I assume like everybody else has that same drive and desire to just create in times of worry and chaos, honestly.
You know, for me, I think that totally resonates with me. Coming up in the industry, I definitely have felt, you know, racist attitudes, prejudice, as well as microaggressions. But I think, you know, it's one of those things where you become numb to it. And while that's probably not good, it does empower you in some ways. And so I think for me, it became a moment where it allowed me to see myself to say, okay, how do I remain focused in this despite what I've been through? And for me, I would say that it caused a determination to create change through my craft, kind of like what Zach was saying. For me, I feel like we've all been given gifts that, if we choose, can be yielded in such a way that provokes thought, challenges the status quo for good. And for me, my fight is my focus, right? So my response is my focus. My pain is my focus. And when I look back in my life, all the most painful, traumatic events instigated the drive and grit to succeed. So in whatever I put my mind to. So I think in essence, a good way to kind of encapsulate all that, focus became my weapon and my defense.
Yeah, I think that's true. Just kind of to what Zach said, like, this is how we can contribute as creators. I'm always trying to do design on the side for personal, like focusing on this was easy. Trying to keep the energy to still get our work for our job done. Like that was a much more difficult task, at least for me personally. So it was just kind of an exercise of, let's do this to be in the conversation, to add value and get more people. Just I think the goal of knowing that this was going to be something that resonated with people, and not just people that already know this, but people that haven't felt this way or haven't connected to a message like that, or it's somebody that they know that feels this way. That to me was the driving factor to get this kind of stuff done. And any other sort of creation that wasn't about this just felt so insincere. It kind of had to take a back seat at that time, and just kind of what happened in the moment, and we're feeling it again. I mean, to be honest.
Thank you for sharing that. And as I mentioned, I have a few more questions, but Alex, would you like to screen the film one more time before I get to these last few?
Because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter who I am, where I'm from, what I do, or what I've done.
It doesn't matter how I was raised.
What I wear, who I'm with,
Who looks up to me?
It doesn't matter if I'm successful.
If I have dreams.
What my plans are.
Where I'm going.
It doesn't matter who I know, what I have,
what I'm thinking, or where I go.
It doesn't matter how good of a person I am or try to be.
As a Black person in America, I'm just one false accusation.
One wrong place, wrong time.
One cop or Karen having a bad day
away from being abused, locked up, or murdered.
That's my everyday reality. That's a paranoia I fear I may never shake.
That's why.
Great. Hope everyone's had a chance to see it now. My next question was actually, do you all at all have a plan to make another film or statement on this moment in this current time? Or do you feel like this one was enough for what you guys wanted to state? Are there any more plans to make more films like this, or you guys kind of need a breather?
I mean, like I said, like this wasn't really planned at first. It kind of just came out and happened. So we'll see. I mean, I know that I'm definitely going to continue to use my creativity to support the movement and contribute any way I can. I mean, that could take the form of another film, a campaign, a platform, a resource, just anything that can help, you know, push things forward. And in advertising, like I feel like we have a responsibility to not only, you know, push clients towards a better future, but, you know, inject, you know, and speak to these issues on a large scale. So I definitely plan on continuing to do that at work as well as outside of work.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing today and this week is a very clear example of it doesn't stop. And whether it's a film dedicated specifically to George Floyd and the movement that we started seeing in March and April, like Zach said, injecting it into everything and pushing clients to do the right thing and speak the right way and act the right way. I think that's the way that you just kind of remind yourself and hopefully not have to have something like what's happening in Wisconsin be the reminder, right? Because it's always there. So I think definitely going forward, whether it's a film like Zach said or it's a campaign, it's something that always has to be there until it doesn't have to be there.
Well said, man. I just wait for them to tell me.
With that being said, I know you all said you work together. So could you speak to what is your work outside of this film and maybe what the temperature has been like at work in terms of just given the current times and, you know, how that whole flow has gone. So what you guys do for work and how that maybe has shifted during this time as well.
Zach, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm a copywriter in advertising, and I mean, advertising's been rocked by this whole movement for good reasons, because, you know, Black people in advertising are few and far between, and that was by design initially, and now people are starting to realize how messed up it has been, how messed up it is, and change is happening, at least slowly, but it's happening. And yeah, I mean, while I was making this, I was also making work for Blue Shield, which they were brave enough as a huge company to take a stand for what's right. One of the first companies to do so before all the other companies started coming out. So throughout work, I mean, I try to inject and continue to fight through, you know, whatever way I can.
Yep. Being in advertising, Zach and I are creative partners and we work on campaigns together. And I think one thing that we always have to keep in mind is to do, when we have a message, doing it for the right reason. A lot of times when something like this happens, or you see a celebrity dies, and brands feel the need to chime in because that's kind of what they do. They have to stay top of mind because they're businesses, they have to sell. But doing it through a lens that's not self-indulgent, doing it in a way and teaching clients or corporations in the small ways that we can to do things from a place of that is legitimate and comes from the right place and doesn't feel like, oh, Black Lives Matter is what we have to change our logo to this month. Like, that's not the way to do it at all. But actually doing it in a way that there's action behind words. To me, that's one of the things that how we have changed the way that we approach advertising and the way that brands speak on social issues and everything like that, politics, everything like that.
Yeah, Derek, they really said it well. It's nothing really for me to add.
Thank you. I have two more questions to follow up with, and then if we have anyone who's viewing who has a question, believe they could start kind of asking them in the Q&A box. Please let us know. But my second to last question was, so this film was released over social media, and from what I saw, it definitely grabbed people's attention. And I wanted to know, especially I guess with advertising as well, social media and more becoming the platform where we hear things, right? Of course, this ended up on the news, but at least in my sphere, social media was the first place that, you know, we heard about these issues happening and people started communicating and organizing, and this collective conversation can really happen. So I wanted to know what the kind of collective conversation was behind, you know, when you guys released this piece and how you navigated that. And also, given the shakeup, you know, that this movement and COVID has had on many industries, how do you see social media playing into our kind of consciousness moving forward and the way that we consume and present media?
I mean, for me, like, I haven't had cable in, I don't know, a decade, maybe. Like, I don't watch the news on TV. All my news comes through social media. And I think that's just how it is. I mean, I'm sure that's the same for most people on this, but when creating this, like, we created it to be shared in Instagram at first, and then, you know, obviously I put it up on Vimeo as well. But that's how we consume. That's how we're informed. That's how we stay informed. That's how, you know, that's how we rally together through social media, because it's, you know, we don't have to go through a network to have our stories heard or have our voices, you know, have to be seen. We can just put it right out there and speak directly to our communities. So going forward, I mean, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, you do things thinking about how is it gonna live on social media first.
Yeah.
Even the news, like Zach said, whenever I see a news clip, I see it on Twitter. I don't see it directly on whatever network it might be. There was definitely a little bit of strategy because we wanted it to be coordinated, and we didn't want, there's so many things happening at once that if Zach posted it one day and then I did the next day and then Carlos the next day, and it wasn't going to work. It was unfortunately going to get lost, even though it's a really powerful message. So we did definitely to try to reach out to people in our own networks that had bigger platforms. Our agency was a big help. They saw the video and they wanted to put their resources behind it and have some PR help with that and have that go into the websites that might have a bigger platform than we individually do. So that there's definitely a strategy to social media. I'm certainly no influencer, so I don't know exactly everything, but
yeah, we got a lot of shares.
Yeah,
we got a lot of shares from people who have way bigger followings than us, which definitely helped get it out there. Like Jen Atkins shared it, Aisha Curry shared it on her platform, and then yeah, the press definitely helped to spread it around. And you know, it's a minute long. It's very short. It's very easy to miss. But luckily, you know, once you see it and you feel it, like, we encourage people to share it. You know, the more people to see it, the better.
And my last question was just, if you guys had any advice or thoughts that you'd like to share with the SCA community, kind of leaving out. I know this moment is difficult. You know, we're not exactly coming to present a comedy. So I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts or advice you'd like to leave with the SCA community before we open it up to if anyone else has questions as well.
Yeah, I guess I would start is to just say, you know, if, you know, being in the cinema school, you know, all of you guys are so talented in what you guys do. You guys are already at SC, you guys are already in the cinematic school. Really utilize your professors, really take the time to hone in on your craft, especially in turbulent times like these, and keep your eyes and ears open for other platforms that you can utilize your skills into in terms of, I'm talking about just work right now. But then also with this current climate, really try not to get so down on yourself, and to just always remember that essentially all the pain, all the emotions that you're feeling are really great ways to essentially kind of boil those down and use those for fuel to create work, and essentially probably your best work. And I think that you're very lucky and fortunate to have this form of creativity through either imagery, music, or the pacing of all the disciplines together, editing. And just always remember that, advertising, communication is one of the most powerful ways to create change in the world. And that's at your fingertips, being your talent. So don't forego that. Use your emotions for empowering yourself in your creativity, and trust yourself in your craft, because you never know what will come out of you.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you're already in an incredible school and program, and there's so much talent from people that are younger than we are, that their creator gene is in them. Like we didn't grow up with social media, and the guys, a lot of the people that are going through film school right now probably did, so they already have an advantage on us. Use your network. Zach reached out to me because we work together and we trust each other creatively. And it was so easy it wasn't even a discussion. Okay, let's reach out to Carlos because we know him and we've worked with him. We trust him creatively with this project. Reach out to your peers. Use your network. When you have an idea, and share that, because Zach Berry could have easily just never put that out. And if he hadn't shared it, we wouldn't have known. So you don't know when you share that with a friend or somebody that has a different skill than you, they might be, I really, really want to do this. This needs to happen. So use that. I mean, I'm not even going to speak on the talent or the possibilities, because I know what's going to come out of SCA is going to transcend a lot more than anything we've done. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like I usually don't post things like that. Like that was probably the first time I ever posted a poem that I wrote on my social media, and look what happened. Like I didn't plan this. I don't think anybody's planned this, but I think my main takeaway would be, don't internalize the pain and frustration. Like get it out. I mean, you're creatives. Like this is the time to create. Like Nina Simone had a great quote, like it's an artist's duty to reflect the times. Like, so use your powers to inspire and encourage the change that you want to see. Like we're the ones to really break through the noise and get attention, get attention. And just create. Just don't stop. Don't let the bullshit like distract you and discourage you. Just create, because that's what we do.
I love that. And I'll just add my own little pieces. Similarly, I kind of did a similar thing where during these times, it kind of was a moment that took away all the constraints of trying to create something for, whether it's trying to touch on a certain vein or feeling like, oh, this is the story. I just made a few projects that resonated a lot with people, but I felt like it was because it was very authentic, because this time period kind of stripped away all those levels of worry about how people would receive it, because it was just a matter of really getting it out. So if anything, through all this craziness, the moment showed me that if you're authentic in your creations, it will resonate with people, especially when you're chimed into a moment like this too. So I definitely resonate with what you guys say in terms of just just allow yourself to feel and share it, because people will hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it for you.
Yeah. Sure. As Alex has mentioned, I'm not sure if we have any questions in the Q&A box yet. If anyone has questions, please feel free to share them, and Alex will answer them.
Yeah, we'll take questions one by one. If you can just send them into the Q&A box. I know that a film like this stirs up a lot of emotions, so don't feel like you have to ask a question. But I do see some people with the last name Ruiz, some people with the last name Brown, and at least one Crooks in the audience. So if any of them want to kick this off, I'd be happy to call on them. Oh, well, no, it's not the chat. It's the Q&A field, but I can, let's see. Does anyone want to raise their hand instead?
So raise your hand on the side.
You were too thorough, Derek.
Yeah, I might have touched on what people wanted to say. But from my aspect, I just wanted to say thank you all for sharing this film and being brave and just using your voice, because as we kind of just said, I think sometimes we can get in our own heads and get in our own way, and I'm glad that you said you were in that work meeting and you just wrote it out and then felt the need to share it, because this definitely resonated with me, and it feels good just to know that other people are using their voice in such a powerful way, again, as we see on a level of like the NBA to what you guys have done within your advertising agency. I think it takes us all being brave enough to share our voice to really see change happen. So thank you guys for coming on today and sharing that film with us all.
Thank you for having us. This has been great.
We do have a couple things that just came in.
Okay,
so I'm gonna move over a few of these. I'm gonna move over a few of these guests as they've asked questions, but I'm gonna start with Jacqueline Crooks. Okay, so Jacqueline, you're on our side. Feel free to turn on your mic and/or your video, or just your mic.
Okay, I just turned my mic on, and I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of what you all have done. I wanted to thank you guys all for sharing your craft and for giving it to us, to the world, and for allowing us to feel that emotion and giving us permission to share our own emotions. So I want to thank you and encourage you to continue to do what you're doing. It's powerful, it's uplifting, and it not only encourages those of your age, but it encourages those as parents and as seniors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I get to do that, Carlos, because we go way back.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Sinan.
I had no idea this was going to be with the microphone. But hello, Carlos, Fonz, Zach. Thanks for having me as a person who's going to ask a question. We work together, but you know, the thing that I wanted to ask, I guess to the panel was and you touched on this, Derek, a little bit. The fact that NBA and now MLB is postponing their games to make a stand, and just wanted to give it to you guys to sort of maybe discuss around that topic.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Sinan. No, I mean, I think it's great what's happening. I mean, I just saw the post that the Clippers and the Lakers have voted to end the season. which is insane. I mean, it's definitely putting what's important first, because sports don't really matter if equality is in question. So, I'm definitely all for putting life on pause until things change and actually change, not just, hashtags and videos, but actual real change.
This is news to me about the Lakers and the Clippers, and that's mind blowing, because these are probably the two teams that are probably going to win it all.
Yep.
According to a lot of people, I think that, it just goes to speak on use your platform. Like, we are creatives, so we created a video. These guys are athletes and put it on the line. And if your platform is going to the country club and playing golf with a bunch of people that don't get it, use that platform and use it to educate people, no matter what it is. If use your skills and the people around you to affect change. This is how we do it. Those athletes, I mean, that's how they do it. The teams didn't start it. The athletes did. I think it's huge, and hopefully it'll lead to change.
Okay, let me bring over Tashai in your house.
Ooh, this is exciting. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha.
The other comments are also, oh wait, hang on a second. Yes, let me bring over Victoria Ippolito. Okay, Victoria, you're on our side. Does anyone feel comfortable turning on their video? I've never had no one take me up on that offer. It is dinner time, I guess.
Yes, I will put my video on. But I just had a quick question. I mean, you guys can answer it pretty simply. I can figure out how to turn my video on. There we go. All right, hi guys. So such a powerful film. I really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to know, how do we find it on social? Because I was Googling and I can't figure out how I'm supposed to share this lovely video with people.
Well, I posted it on my Instagram. It's Zack, ITSZACK.
Okay.
On Instagram.
Okay, cool.
It's in there.
I tried to find you guys on Twitter, and does nobody have a?
I have Twitter, but I don't really use it.
Okay, because I'm like, that was the first place I looked, and I was like, nope. So, okay, Instagram. Okay, cool. Because I think that everyone needs to see it. So I feel like, it just needs to go like wildfire. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So great job.
Okay, it looks like we've got, we had a hand raised from Michael Brown. All right, Michael, if you're out there, you can turn on your mic.
Yeah. I'll just say that I probably had one of the earlier viewings of the clip because I happen to be Zach's uncle. So, and we're in Barbados at this time. It's pretty late, but we shared it, and Zach can confirm the media picked it up here, and it resonates with us here. And it's a very powerful message because we understand, because we all have families in these metropolitan countries. So we understand the whole aspect of Black Lives Matter, and we can feel it because So when Zack shared his experience, I've known him for all his life, but I did that part of it I didn't know. And the truth is, I wondered, because as a Black guy growing up in New York, I always wondered, you know, if he had been touched by this. And when he shared that, I said, oh well, he wasn't left out. But he said it's a very powerful message, and it resonates with us here, and the media picked it up, and it has been shared here, so we can understand what is happening in the US.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, the Barbados newspaper actually shared the film. They interviewed me for an article. Thanks to my uncle for connecting me with them, and yeah, it was just great to spread the message internationally, or back home for me, since I'm from Barbados.
So the other messages were just comments of thanks. You guys are welcome to go ahead and read them. But I just wanted to say that I'm really glad that we were able to do this. I know between all of the complications of our lives right now, it was tough to find a date. And, you know, in some ways, the timing of this became even more critical, lest anyone for a moment forget what happened earlier this summer and what's been happening for hundreds of years. So Derek, thank you. And Zack, Alfonso, Carlos, it was really wonderful to have you guys here to present your film.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.